Once you know this secret, keep your mouth shut. There is a certain moment in the path of self-realization where a person comes across a secret. It is not a secret hidden in books, nor one shared from mouth to ear. It is the kind that arises from direct experience, from years of silence, of discipline, of inner observation, and once this secret is known, the natural temptation is to shout it out, to share, to teach, to express, but the wise do otherwise. The wise remain still, they walk quietly. Today, we will explore why that is, why the secret must not be spoken, and why silence becomes not a weakness, but a supreme strength. Let us begin with 7 key principles, 7 doors to understanding. True wisdom is beyond language. When you sit in stillness long enough, something begins to shift, not in the world around you, but in the perception through which you see that world. You begin to understand that many things you once believed to be essential are in fact just echoes in the wind, not the wind itself. Words are like fingers pointing to the moon, but they are not the moon. We can describe the light, the beauty, the position of the moon in the sky, but no amount of description can replace the experience of standing beneath its silver glow on a silent night. The essence is in the experience, not the explanation. When one realizes something profound about the nature of life, the self, or the universe, the first instinct is often to speak, to share, to articulate. This urge is natural. It arises from the excitement of discovery, from the desire to uplift others. Yet, this very instinct can diminish the depth of the realization if not handled with care. To speak a truth too soon is to interrupt its unfolding. It's like pulling a flower before it has fully bloomed. The beauty is there, yes, but incomplete. And in that incompleteness, what could have been nourishing becomes fragmented. Wisdom that is still maturing within you needs the soil of silence. It needs your breath, your attention, your discipline. It does not need an audience. It does not need applause. It simply needs space to breathe, just as the lungs need space to expand. In early stages of understanding, language becomes like a river that has not yet carved its path. It floods in all directions, overwhelming and uncontrolled. The wise do not let that river rush out. They build the banks first. They create the channels for that water to flow, slowly and steadily, with purpose. Often, what is spoken too early becomes distorted, not because of ill intention, but because the mind has not yet fully integrated what the heart has glimpsed. There is a disconnection between insight and embodiment. That gap is dangerous if left unattended. The mouth may be quick, but the spirit is slow. The rhythm of true wisdom is not the rhythm of conversation. It is the rhythm of nature. It unfolds like the seasons, ripening in its own time, not when we command it. Those who learn to wait, who let the insight settle like dust in still air, discover that their understanding deepens without effort. They do not need to analyze or repeat the insight. They simply hold it, like a glowing ember, close to the center of their being. This ember becomes a quiet fire, and that fire begins to warm the whole structure of who they are. Their speech changes not because they try to sound wise, but because foolishness no longer lives in their voice. Their silence becomes rich, not empty. Their presence becomes language without sound. Try to explain to a fish what it feels like to fly. No words will suffice, but the bird does not explain to the fish. It simply flies, and perhaps one day the fish will grow wings of its own and understand without a single word spoken. In the same way, realization must not be forced into syllables. It must be digested. It must move through the body, the breath, the bones, and only when it has transformed you completely will it begin to shine through you without the need for explanation. There is a kind of quiet knowing that changes the shape of your posture. It affects the way you see people, the way you listen, the way you step into a room. This is not theatrical, it is natural. It does not seek recognition. It only seeks alignment. And when others encounter this kind of being, they feel something. They may not understand it, but they sense it, and in sensing it, they begin to search for it within themselves. This is how transmission happens, without noise, without pressure, without ego. So when the insight comes, receive it like sacred rain. Do not try to catch it in your hands. Do not try to show it to others. Let it soak into the soil of your being, so that one day, something pure may grow. Silence is a shield against ego. There is a delicate moment in the journey of awakening when the inner eyes begin to open. A light appears not outside, but within the chambers of your consciousness. In this illumination, you see things you never saw before. You feel lighter, more connected, more alive, and it is here, in this sacred moment, that a shadow begins to form, quiet, subtle, and dangerous. It is the shadow of ego cloaked in spiritual pride. Ego is not always loud. It often wears silence like a disguise. It can quote wisdom, mimic humility, perform compassion, and yet it seeks one thing only: recognition. The danger is not in the light of realization. It is in what the ego tries to do with that light. After insight, the ego whispers, "You are different now. You are ahead. You understand what others do not." These thoughts do not appear like poison. They appear like praise, but even sweetened poison is poison still, and unless one is vigilant, the journey inward becomes a loop back to self-glorification. Silence becomes the guardian here. It is not simply the absence of speech. It is the deliberate refusal to make the sacred into a performance. When one chooses silence, one refuses to decorate realization with personal identity. The insight remains pure, untouched, because it has not been handed to the ego for exhibition. When the ego speaks, even truth becomes distorted. It bends the message to highlight the speaker. It does not serve the truth, it serves itself. This is why many speak wisely but act foolishly. The words are borrowed, but the essence is absent. There is no embodiment, only projection. To protect yourself from this trap, cultivate a silence that is not passive, but powerful. It is a silence that watches every impulse to be seen, every urge to be praised. This silence sharpens your awareness, trims the excess, humbles the self. It is like a monk standing guard at the gate of the heart. Ego cannot survive long in such silence. It needs external validation. It needs noise. In silence it has nothing to feed on, so it begins to shrink, and in its shrinking the space within you expands, the space where the real self can breathe freely. You begin to understand that not everything needs to be shared. Not every experience needs to be spoken. Some things are meant to grow in the darkness, like roots beneath the earth, and when the time comes, they will blossom without effort, because they were nurtured in silence, not flaunted in speech. There is a kind of silence that says more than words ever could. It is the silence of someone who no longer needs to prove, no longer needs to defend, no longer needs to impress. That kind of silence is not empty, it is full. Full of presence, full of truth, full of grounded simplicity. Ego seeks applause, wisdom seeks stillness. The moment you feel the need to broadcast your insight, ask yourself, who is speaking, the quiet self that is seen beyond form, or the old self dressed in spiritual robes? The answer will often determine whether your path deepens or detours. True realization is not loud. It does not arrive with fanfare. It slips into your being like a morning breeze. It humbles you. It opens your eyes to how little you truly know. And in that humility, silence becomes your natural state. Not enforced, but embraced. When you wear silence like armor, you protect your soul from arrogance. You keep the sacred sacred. You ensure that the inner work is not diluted by outer performance. You let your growth remain your own, untouched, untainted, unadvertised. Some may ask why you do not share your insights. Some may push you to speak, to lead, to explain, but those who understand will not ask. They will see it in your eyes, in your breath, in your steps. And to them, your silence will be the greatest teaching. So you keep quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because what you carry cannot be said. It must be lived. It must be radiated through your actions, not your announcements. In this way, you shield the sacred from the profane. The ego wants recognition, the soul wants realization. Let silence be the sword that severs the two. The secret speaks in action, not in words. There are moments when truth reveals itself not through speech, but through silence wrapped in movement. These are moments when your body walks before your tongue, when your presence enters a room before any greeting is given. In such moments, words become unnecessary because life itself becomes the message. When realization dawns within a person, it begins to inform their very being. You can see it in how they sit, how they eat, how they breathe. They no longer need to declare transformation. Transformation has taken root in their spine, in their gaze, in the pauses between their gestures. Real teaching is not verbal, it is vibrational. It moves from one being to another through energy, through atmosphere, through attention. There is no effort in it, no ambition to persuade. It is simply there, like sunlight warming the skin of those who do not even realize they are cold. A secret, when truly known, does not shout, it echoes, and its echo is not loud, it is constant. It shows itself in discipline, in humility, in patience. These are not virtues to perform, but consequences of depth. One who knows the depth does not talk about it, he becomes it. To speak too soon is to escape the work of integration. It is easier to teach than to live. It is easier to give answers than to wrestle with them alone in the still hours of the morning. But the one who truly knows will not be so eager to instruct. He will let his life speak for him. There is a quiet power in being misunderstood. Not because you wish to remain hidden, but because the inner transformation is still unfolding. To rush it into explanation is like cutting open a fruit that has not yet ripened. Its taste is lost, its nourishment wasted. Let the secret grow within, let it burn slowly like incense in the temple of your soul. Let it color your choices, your expressions, your silences. Let it be the force behind your restraint, the source of your discipline, the reason you walk away from noise. Words are cheap when they are not backed by energy. Action, however, is honest. It cannot lie. You cannot pretend presence. You cannot fake clarity. They are either in you or they are not, and when they are, others will feel it even if they do not understand it. A calm person in a room full of chaos speaks volumes. A focused person among the distracted becomes a mirror. A humble person among the arrogant becomes a reminder, all without saying a single word. This is how the secret speaks through action. Your life is your offering. Your routine is your ritual. Your choices are your scriptures. If people want to learn from you, let them watch how you rise in the morning, how you treat those who cannot benefit you, how you speak when no one is listening. To carry the secret is not to carry information. It is to carry responsibility. The responsibility to become the embodiment of what you have realized, not for praise, but for truth's sake, not for reward, but because you have touched something that now demands alignment. Action is the truest form of devotion. In every small decision, you either honor what you've realized or you betray it. Every breath is a vow, every step a promise, and the world watches, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Is this one living what he knows, or just speaking what he's heard? The body becomes the altar. The daily schedule becomes the sacred text. You no longer separate the spiritual from the practical. Washing dishes becomes as important as meditation. Listening becomes more powerful than preaching. Living becomes more valuable than lecturing. There will be days when no one notices your effort, no one sees your inner battles, no one praises your restraint. But you keep walking, keep honoring, keep embodying, because you did not begin this journey for applause. You began it for truth. So speak with your hands, speak with your eyes, speak with your breath. Let every gesture be saturated with understanding, and in this way, the secret will not need to be told. It will be felt by those who are ready to feel. Most will not understand the path within is narrow, not because it is exclusive, but because few are willing to become small enough to enter. Not small in significance, but small in ego, in pride, in noise. To walk the inner path requires a shedding, and shedding is painful for those who are still trying to accumulate. The moment you begin to wake up, to truly see through illusion, you notice how deeply others are asleep. Their words are loud, but their hearts are quiet. Their lives are full, yet empty, and even though your eyes begin to open, theirs remain closed, not by force, but by choice. You may feel the urge to speak, to shake them, to lift the veil for them. But wisdom demands restraint. You cannot pour light into eyes that are not ready to see, and forcing insight on the unready is not compassion, it is intrusion. Understanding cannot be gifted. It must be earned through suffering, silence, solitude. These are the teachers that no one volunteers for, but everyone must eventually meet. Those who resist them will not understand your peace, your stillness, your refusal to join the noise. There will be moments when your presence unsettles others. Not because you are trying to be different, but because your silence confronts their avoidance. Your simplicity exposes their distractions. Your clarity becomes a mirror they do not want to look into. And yet, you do not judge them, for you were once the same, busy chasing, hungry for validation, afraid of stillness. The difference now is not superiority. It is simply a shift in focus. You began to look inward when others still looked outward. In that shift, you lost many things: opinions, friendships, belonging. The world you once knew started to fade. The people you once trusted began to turn away, not always with malice, but with confusion. They do not see the silent storm you endured to arrive at peace. Some will mock you, some will pity you, some will call you lost. They will measure your life by metrics you no longer recognize: status, wealth, popularity. And you will realize that you no longer speak the same language, not because you have changed languages, but because they never learned to listen to silence. It is lonely to walk the inner path, but the loneliness is not emptiness. It is space, space to breathe, space to feel, space to become, and in this vastness you begin to find a joy that is not dependent on company, not reliant on approval. When you speak now, your words carry weight. Not because they are clever, but because they are chosen. You no longer speak to convince or impress. You speak when the silence gives you permission, and only when it can serve, not decorate. Most will not understand this. They will ask why you are quiet, why you withdraw, why you no longer chase the same things. You cannot explain it to them, not because you don't have the words, but because they are not asking to understand. They are asking you to return to who you were. But you cannot go back. You have seen too much. You have tasted a kind of stillness that the world cannot offer. You have learned that understanding is not something that can be shared like food. It must be cultivated like a garden. So you water your garden in silence. You grow fruits that only few will ever taste, and you accept that this is the cost of awakening. Not everyone will come with you. Not everyone will see what you see. And that is not a tragedy. It is simply reality. One day, perhaps, someone will sit beside you, not to ask, not to debate, but simply to listen. Not to your words, but to your presence. And in that shared stillness, something will pass between you that no conversation could ever convey. Until then, you walk with a quiet heart, not needing to be understood, not needing to be followed, only needing to remain faithful to what you have seen, and to what you are becoming. Power grows in the hidden. True strength is not noisy. It does not demand recognition. It does not seek the spotlight. Like the roots of a great tree, it works in darkness, silent, slow, unseen, and yet everything that is visible above depends upon what is hidden below. In a world obsessed with performance, the unseen often appears unimportant. But all genuine transformation begins in places no one notices. The seed must first crack open beneath the soil. That cracking is messy. That process is painful, but without it there is no growth. The most powerful moments of your journey are often invisible to others. The decisions you make in solitude, the battles you fight within your own mind, the tears you shed when no one is watching, these are not wasted. These are sacred. To cultivate inner power, you must be willing to disappear for a time, not to retreat in fear, but to refine in silence. Just as a sword is shaped in fire and shadow before it is ever drawn, so must your spirit be forged in quiet dedication. When no one is watching, the ego has no one to impress. In this condition, your efforts become honest. You train not for approval, but for alignment. You meditate not to be seen as spiritual, but to clean the mirror of your soul. Invisibility is protection. What grows too quickly in the open is often shallow. It withers when the weather changes, but what grows slowly in hidden places puts down deep roots. It can endure the storms because its foundation was built where the wind could not reach. Even in nature, the most enduring forces are concealed. The movement of tectonic plates, the flow of underground rivers, the silent rhythm of seasons beneath the bark of trees, their influence is great, but their presence is subtle. To walk the inner path is to embrace this kind of growth. You do not need to announce your strength. You do not need to advertise your progress. You simply live with integrity, and in time, others will sense it, not because you told them, but because they can feel the weight of your being. It takes patience to accept that your greatest development may not be acknowledged. It takes humility to keep working when no one celebrates you. But in that hidden work, something unshakable is being built within you, a presence that cannot be imitated. Power in the hidden does not mean hiding from life. It means not performing for it. It means doing what must be done without seeking attention. It means learning to love the quiet places where your soul is carved into something real. The sacred does not flourish under artificial light. It grows under the moon, in the stillness of dawn, in the silence of empty rooms. When you honor these quiet hours, you are choosing depth over display, substance over spectacle. You will know your power is real when it remains even in the face of rejection, even in the absence of praise. You will know it is rooted when your strength does not depend on the mood of the world, but rises from a place within that no one can touch. And when the time comes when action is required, you will move with clarity, with calm force. People will wonder where this strength came from. They will not understand that it was grown in the dark, that it was watered by discipline and lit by your own inner flame. Do not rush to be seen. Let your work ripen in silence. Let your roots grow deep. Let your strength mature beneath the surface. And when the fruit appears, it will not need a name. It will speak for itself through the nourishment it gives to others. So stay faithful to the hidden. That is where real power begins. The more you know, the less you speak. There is a silence that comes from ignorance, and there is a silence that comes from understanding. One is empty, the other is full. The former is a void yet to be filled. The latter is a well too deep to be emptied by words. As you begin to awaken and see through the veils of illusion, your first impulse may be to speak, to share, to proclaim. But as your understanding deepens, you notice something curious. The more clearly you see, the less you feel the need to explain. True knowledge brings humility, not pride. You see that every answer leads to deeper questions, that certainty is a mask, and that wisdom lies not in having the final word, but in recognizing when no word is needed. When you know very little, you must speak often to maintain the illusion of knowing. But when you truly understand, your words become fewer, softer, more precise. You begin to realize that speaking less is not withholding, it is honoring the mystery. There are realms that cannot be touched by language. Words are tools, not truths. They point, but they do not contain. To confuse the map with the territory is to remain lost. Even while holding directions in your hand, you begin to recognize the sacredness of silence. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of respect. You realize that not everything should be spoken, not because it is secret, but because it is sacred. And sacred things lose power when they are exposed without preparation. Speech becomes deliberate. It is no longer used to fill the air, but to clarify the moment. You speak when silence is not enough. You remain quiet when silence speaks better than you can. This balance is not learned from books. It is earned through presence. In a noisy world, stillness is power. In a world obsessed with opinions, restraint is wisdom. The one who listens more than he speaks holds the room without trying. People feel something around him that cannot be explained, and that is the point. You no longer enter conversations to win. You enter them to connect, or you do not enter at all. You know that arguing with ignorance is like pouring water into a broken cup. It is not avoidance, it is efficiency. You speak to uplift, not to impress. You choose silence when words would only confuse. You do not compete in debates where everyone is defending what they haven't lived. You do not decorate truth with cleverness. You leave it bare or you leave it unspoken. As your insight grows, so does your compassion. You see how often people speak from fear, from pain, from habit. And instead of correcting them, you listen. You hold space. You trust that truth is not something you give to others. It is something they discover for themselves. The mature heart does not lecture. It reflects. It does not impose. It invites. And it does so more by presence than by proclamation. This is the way of those who have seen deeply and now walk softly. Eventually, even your inner dialogue begins to quiet. The voice in your head that once narrated everything begins to dissolve. What replaces it is not emptiness, but stillness. A stillness so rich that even a single breath feels like a teaching. There is no desire to be known as wise. There is only the desire to live wisely, and that living does not require a microphone. It requires mindfulness, integrity, and the courage to be silent when silence is the highest form of truth. And so you begin to walk through the world with fewer words and more awareness. You listen with your entire being. You speak only when the moment calls for it, and through your silence, others begin to hear themselves more clearly. Let the secret guard you. What began as a whisper in your soul is now a fire kept in a hidden chamber. You have journeyed through silence, endured misunderstanding, and embraced the quiet labor of invisible transformation, not to impress, not to convince, but to become. Along this path, you have discovered that wisdom is not found in the noise of declarations, but in the stillness between actions. That power is not demonstrated through force, but revealed in restraint. That clarity is not something spoken, it is something lived. Those who know do not rush to speak, and those who speak often have not yet seen. In a world eager for exposure, you have learned to protect the sacred by keeping it unannounced. What grows in silence gains strength. What is paraded too soon loses its soul. You do not hide because you are afraid. You remain quiet because you understand. The most meaningful truths cannot be spoken until they are lived, and by the time they are lived, there is no longer a need to speak them. You are no longer the same. You are not who you were. You are also not yet who you will become. But now you walk differently. You carry something within, a secret that asks not to be shared, but to be honored. Let your silence be your protection. Let your discipline be your declaration. Let your presence speak louder than your voice ever could. Because when you know, truly know, the only instruction left is this: keep your mouth shut, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You are not here to convince the world. You are here to embody the truth. And when your life becomes the message, there is no need to explain it. Walk forward quietly. Let your footsteps carry the weight of what you have learned. Let your breath carry the calm of your discipline. Let your eyes hold the depth of your transformation. And may the secret you now carry, silent, powerful, unshakable, guard you as you guard it.